Welcome to Your ADHD Life. This is Dr. Kirsten Milliken. You are in for a treat today. We have an interview with Dr. Ned Hallowell talking about living with ADHD himself. And we talk about everything from brain management to learning to the importance of relationships and even apple cider vinegar. Enjoy the show. Ned Hallowell, welcome to Your ADHD Life. This is a treat for me.
Wonderful to be with you, Kristen.
Thanks. So for those very few people in my audience who might not know who you are, I just want to tell everybody that Dr. Ned Hallowell is a child and adult psychiatrist. He's also a New York Times bestseller. If you haven't heard about the ADHD Bible yet, this is Driven to Distraction, which he wrote with John Rady years ago. It's been updated, and it's probably what you're most well known for, although you've had, was it like 20 other books on ADHD and various other topics. And you have your practices in Boston, and I know you've got an affiliate one out in on the West Coast and one in New York, and I'm sure, and one in Connecticut. Yes.
No, Boston actually, Sudbury, just west of Boston.
Okay, good to know.
New York City on West 72nd Street, and Seattle and San Francisco.
I forgot about the one in San Francisco. There you go. And you have an upcoming book that is coming out in June.
Yes.
Called Because I Come from a Crazy Family, The Making of a Psychiatrist,
Yes.
Which you talked to me about earlier last year. And I just thought that's just going to be fantastic. So
Well, it's unlike any book I've written before. It's a memoir. And it was quite different writing this because I didn't have to give any advice. I just told stories about growing up in my truly crazy, wonderful family. And I don't go into the world of ADD at all. I just talk about my childhood and then my years in high school, college, medical school, residency, early training in psychiatry, and the wonderful patients that I worked with, the wonderful teachers that I had, the often very funny, sometimes very poignant, sad, glorious, raucous experiences. Not at all about ADD, but about life.
okay, but let's be real. So Ned, you have ADHD, yes?
It
runs in your family, and even if it may not be directly about ADHD, the truth is that you have ADHD, and that has an impact on your fantastic, fabulous, and maybe sometimes dramatic and crazy life.
Well, sure. I mean, indirectly, it's
Right.
about ADD since I have ADD. So
Right.
you could say anything I write is
Exactly.
about it. But it's a story about growing up in a old New England WASP family and the eccentric, crazy, funny people that I was shaped by.
Oh, no.
And then the very traditional schools I went to, Fessenden, Exeter, Harvard, very, very traditional education, which in fact wasn't so traditional. It was very liberating, very, I was encouraged to think anything, do anything, say anything. It was all, in the tradition of Emerson, the road less traveled, the nonconformist. It was all about being a nonconformist. It was all about challenging orthodoxy. And that is the heart of the liberal education, which I was given. And I treasure it, and that really is the heart of who I am to this day, challenging in the best sense, trying to get at the truth, not accepting received shibboleths, and instead trying to, and really that's how I learned about ADD. I didn't accept what was handed down. I was presented it as a disorder, and I saw that in fact embedded in this so-called disorder there were all kinds of strengths, and that's where I am today, and where I think the field is today. That we see this much more as a trait. Yes. that encompasses many positives. Yes, there are certainly many negatives that can ruin your life. Russ Barkley has certainly showed us that this
Yes.
condition, if you don't manage it properly, can positively wipe you out.
Yep.
The prisons are full of people with undiagnosed ADD. The addicted population, 50% of young adults who have ADD are addicted. So it can be a crippling condition. But on the other hand, it can also take you to the very top. CEOs, most entrepreneurs have it, Nobel Prize winners, Pulitzer Prize winners. And that's what makes it such an interesting condition.
It is.
It's the best of times and the worst of times.
It's ideal for somebody who has ADHD to be in the field because it is so interesting.
Yeah.
It's not, there's not one path that any person with it follows. So tell me, again, I know that your book is not written about coming from the ADHD perspective, but when did you know that you had a difference, that maybe not formally diagnosed, but that how you were operating at school?
Well, I mean, I knew I learned differently in the first grade because I was slow to learn to read, and my father told me I was a mirror reader. Back then, that's what they called dyslexia. It was strephosymbolia, long word. And so my dad said, "You're a mirror reader." So I would walk around with books and put them up in front of a mirror to see if I could read better. Well, that didn't help. But it meant that I was very slow. I was a very slow reader. I'm still painfully slow reader. I have what we now call dyslexia. So I knew I had that. Mind you, I majored in English at Harvard, and graduated with high honors, and I make my living with words. So then again, that's the lie about these so-called disabilities, that embedded within them there are major talents. John Irving, who went to Exeter a few years before me, went through Exeter thinking he was stupid, and now he's one of the world's great novelists. He also has dyslexia. We do these people a tremendous disservice by calling them disabled or stupid. But so I got the message in first grade that I was this mirror reader, and there was something wrong with me. They didn't tell me that often so-called mirror readers are very talented in
geniuses.
In certain ways. And I also knew I was different because my family was a little bit crazy, and my dad was in a mental hospital, and there was a lot of alcoholism going on, but I didn't feel ashamed, and then that's what somehow or other my family conveyed the message that we were good people. We had fun, we sort of carried it off with an attitude of pride and humor. We laughed a lot. We didn't take life terribly seriously. So we weren't depressed, we had a jaunty way about us, and thank goodness for that. So there was what I call the WASP triad: alcoholism, mental illness, and politeness.
I think it's a quadrangle though, because you have to add in the fun.
Well, in our case, there was a lot of fun.
I think that just carries any kid so far, to have a family where there's play and fun in it. Yes. But I wrote the book PlayDHD, and to me, that is just the ideal family social setting to be raised in, is to be engaged in a playful way, so that things aren't always so serious, and so that you are operating at your best.
I agree with that. I just had a sip of my medication, which is caffeine.
You're funny. I took my little pill this morning, and I'm using apple cider vinegar. That's my
that's
thing.
Wonderful. Bragg's?
No, I actually have friends of mine, Mia and Bob Sewell, who are up in the Camden area in Maine, and Bob has an apple orchard, and they make the best apple cider vinegar ever.
Oh, well, this is my
there you go. That's a good fallback. But I will one day, when I come down to visit you, I will bring you some of Sewell Orchard's apple cider vinegar.
I'm sure homemade is better, but Bragg's, if you have to go commercial, Bragg's.
It is.
And I drink it straight out of the bottle. I have a big swig of Bragg's. So,
there you go. It's great. I mean, we do all kinds of things, right, to manage our health and our brains. And apple cider vinegar is one of them. Caffeine's another.
Well, you know, Kristen, one of the things I love about you is the and I think the more we can teach this, encourage this, embody this, is this attitude of playful fun, and it's not superficial. It's
No.
very deep. The can bubble up from within the sense of however bad life can be, and life can be very bad. You just want to just stare it in the eye and say, "Come on, let's dance anyway. Let's laugh anyway. Let's make the best of whatever it is, and play." You know, then you're the play specialist.
I try. It's interesting because working with adults, of course, the idea of play is a little daunting to them. They feel that it's frivolous. And so I've learned to couch it as brain management, right? Which is really what, whether you approach, you know, ADHD from medication or diet or sleep or play, at the end of the day, we're all talking about the same thing, which is managing our brains, so that we are successful and productive and happy and fun to be with. So,
listen, you're kind enough to plug my new book. You can order it now on Amazon. It won't come out until June, but it's available for pre-order on Amazon.
And I am going to be offering people the link for your pre-order.
Oh, thank you.
So that they can do that. Absolutely. I'll be pre-ordering it, I know. So, because what I have to tell you, I have a couple of copies of this book. But this one is one of my favorites because it's signed by you. I think I have a couple of other of your books that are signed by you. So when I bring you that apple cider vinegar, I'm also going to be getting you to sign that book. But,
thank you.
But while I have you here now, so do you have ADHD? And I know these books are coming up and you are great at talking to people about ADHD. But one of the things you just mentioned is that by being good role models, tell me about how you live your ADHD life. I know you're always off on adventures and having fun.
Well, you know, I always say the key to life with ADHD as an adult is probably the keys to life, period. Marry the right person or pair up with the right person and find the right job. And I stumbled in purely by luck. My wife, Sue, and she's just from heaven. I mean, one of the many reasons I believe in God, I found Sue. You know, she was not the woman I was scripted to marry. I was scripted to marry some neurotic wasp poet, you know, who sipped martinis and smoked cigarettes. And that's not who I married. I married this country girl from Virginia. And you know, she's perfect for me. And fortunately, she likes me in return. And you know, we've had these 3 fantastic children, and we've combined to give them the happy childhood that I didn't have. And I had a interesting childhood, but it wasn't exactly happy. And it's just meant the world. I mean, you know, Sue and I I just can't tell you how I never have to spend a moment wondering about the meaning of life, thanks to her. And then I also stumbled into this condition called ADD. I'd never heard of it. I'd gone through college, medical school, residency, and then I was doing a fellowship in child psychiatry. And the only reason I did child psychiatry is I had to do something. You know, I had to do something for the final year of training. And I didn't want to do forensics, and I didn't want to do chief resident, and I didn't want to do psychopharm. When child was the last option left, and I said, okay, even though it means I have to do an additional year of training, child development sounds interesting, and I like kids, so I signed up for it, and it purely by chance, you know, more reasons to believe in God. And then I learned about this condition that I'd never heard of called Attention Deficit Disorder. And lo and behold, it opened up a whole new world for me. And I saw the condition in a way that other people weren't seeing it. And I paired up with John Rady, and we began talking about it pretty much through the decade of the 80s. And then we came out with a book called Driven to Distraction in 1994 that sort of brought it to the general public and launched my career, both as a specialist and as a writer about the condition. And you know, both of those were by chance. you know, marrying Sue and finding ADD, which leads me to one of my favorite comments. How do you make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Because I never had planned to marry Sue, and I never had planned to build a career on a condition that I'd never even heard of called ADD.
So okay, you're funny because I have a story about learning that I had ADHD after already being a professional in the field. How did you finally put it together that you had ADHD?
Well, I heard a lecture about it, and I mean, it just fit perfectly.
Yep.
And
this was before or after you did the child rotation?
Oh, it was during the child rotation.
Oh, okay.
You know, part of learning child psychiatry is learning about attention deficit disorder. In fact, it's the only professional training where that's offered.
Yep.
No other, and you know, it's a tiny segment of the medical professionals are child psychiatrists, and that's why so few people know about it. But a significant segment of child training is in ADD. So the first lecture we had on it, given by this woman I'll never forget, Elsie Freeman, she began talking about this thing that was then called attention deficit disorder. And I said, holy bleep, you know, that's me. But I also instantly saw the bigger picture, which is all the positives that go with it.
Yes.
You know, impulsivity, which we usually think of as a negative, I said, well, you know, what's creativity?
Right.
But a form of impulsivity. You don't plan to have creative thoughts. They're impulsive. They come out of nowhere. So the medical deficit-based model leaves out all the positives. And that was my big insight. That was my aha moment that really, you know, you only have really new ideas a few times in your lifetime. And that was mine. That was a big deal for me. And, you know, I've been building on that.
It's a big deal for a lot of people. Thank God you had that.
Yeah. Well, I've been building on that. And so it was during my training that I had that moment. And then I sat down and had, you know, one of the evaluators go over me systematically, and he agreed, yes, you have this condition. So I was blessed, you know, formally and
go forth with your ADHD. Spread the word.
Spread the word. And some people don't believe I have it. And I say to them, you know, just talk to my wife. She will tell you for sure.
If they don't believe her, you can tell them to call me because I spent a few days with you.
Yes. You saw it up close and personal.
I did.
You know. The fact that I can stand up and give a lecture doesn't mean I don't have it, you know, and that's what people don't understand. When we're structured and focused, we're structured and focused, you know, but put us in the back of a cab going somewhere or give us, you know, unstructured time and we're all over the place.
That's right.
You and I have sat in the back of a cab going somewhere. And,
we did. Oh, there weren't any squirrels in Kuwait, but there were lots of other things to look at. It was very interesting. So, I know you've only got a few minutes left, and I don't like to take up too much of my audience's attention span for the day.
A limited quantity.
Really. I do. I don't want to tax anybody's attention too much. There's so many wonderful things to pay attention to in life. So remind me again the name of your book and when it's coming out.
Because I Come from a Crazy Family, The Making of a Psychiatrist. And it'll be out on June 12th from Bloomsbury. But it is available now on Amazon and other online bookstores. And
I will be adding the pre-order link for everybody to click on wherever we are putting this show out. And I just want you to share, I know you've got your professional, like what you tell people about ADHD, you know, your final words about that. But personally, what has been the most fantastic thing for you about being somebody with ADHD?
I think, you know, it's funny. I was just thinking about that this morning. I think I've had once I discovered there was a name for it, it's been like a love affair. It's been this love affair with ups and downs. I've suffered with it, and reach the heights of joy with it. It's a condition that I continue to explore, much as you would do with a person. I've gotten to know it in its depths. It's punished me at times because I get into trouble with impulsive stuff, but it's rewarded me at times with my creativity. It's blessed me because I'm able to help a lot of people. I've been given tremendous gratification by my ability to reach people and change their lives. But I've suffered because I've, done things impulsively that I wish that I hadn't. So it's been like a lifelong romance with the suffering, with the gratification, with the ecstasy, with the agony. It's been like a long-term love affair that will not end until I die. It's not going to die.
That's right.
And I love this mistress, if you will. I continue to get to know her, and she reveals herself gradually, and it among conditions in the behavioral sciences, I think it's the most interesting because it has so many positives, and because it is passionate. It's full of emotion. It's full of these wonderful bursts of energy, of brilliance, of creativity, and also of potential disaster. So you have to be very careful with it.
Do you find, I know I said I was going to wrap up, but now I'm really interested. Do you find, or have you noticed that over time, as you've gotten older, that it has changed? Like how you are?
Within me or the public perception?
No, within you.
Oh, within me for sure.
Yeah.
I've learned how to modulate it better. I don't get carried away as easily. I've learned how to hold back. My analogy, ADD is a race car brain with bicycle brakes.
Yes.
My brakes are much stronger than they used to be.
So I have to wonder, because I hear adults saying so often, right, that they learned as they got older.
Yeah.
And it happens so much that I have to wonder if it's just natural progression of our brain to become better able to do that, right? And then we practice it because it's easier.
Yeah. I don't think it's learning, because I could have learned that 40 years ago,
Right.
So it's not a cognitive experience.
Right.
It is more, it's more like going to the gym, and you have to develop certain muscles, and I don't think it happens naturally. So it's not a matter of aging.
Okay.
Because some people never get there. They just continue to be headstrong and impulsive and just continue to charge through life. But if you go to the gym, whatever our gym is, you can build those muscles, build those brakes, and not suffer the downside of ADD nearly as much. And I mean, this is where Russ Barkley has been so helpful in telling people to take it seriously, and to strengthen those brakes, and to avoid the bad outcomes that so many people suffer. And then my message is, then you can get the good outcomes that are really terrific.
Yep. You've had a lot of good outcomes, including your upcoming book, and I am looking forward to reading it.
Thank you so much.
You're a great writer. So, Ned, thank you so much for taking your time this morning to talk with me. I want to remind people that they can also find you at drhallowell.com. And of course, your books are all available everywhere. And I will be putting up the link for your new book coming out.
Thank you. And how can anyone not love someone with that shock of red hair?
Thank you. Thank you, Ned. I appreciate that. I hope that you have a great day and that you play well today.
Thank you, Kristen. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. If you've enjoyed the show, please like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Your ADHD Life. This is Dr. Kirsten Milliken. Until next time, have fun and find ways to play.